And of course, on my side, I'm not pessimistic, but I'm realistic. And you cannot be realistic when you're an entrepreneur, when you are running a startup. You don't know where your money will come from, when the next round will take place, but still you go on with full force. You don't have a product yet, but still you are trying to sell it and explain it and make other people as enthusiastic as you are. And these are really virtues that I admire with entrepreneurs. Having said all that, I think that the entrepreneurs should be optimistic, maybe overly optimistic, but should bear in mind all the downside as well.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. 20-Minute Leaders is a proud supporter of Make-A-Wish Israel and Tech to Peace, and is in proud collaboration with Secret Chord Ventures, J Ventures, Riverside FM, Fusion VC, Birthright Excel, J Impact, Leap, Google for Startups, and Hippo, and in media partnership with C-Tech. Hello and welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Today I am joined by Amir Zolty, a lawyer and the head of Lipa Meir's Hightech practice. Over the last 20 years, he's been dealing with high-tech, corporate finance, privacy, and data security. And prior to that, he worked closely with the President of the Supreme Court of Israel, and before that, with the Attorney General. Amir is also an 8200 alumna, and his story is just fascinating. Welcome, Amir.
Thank you very much for coming and sharing a little bit about your story and a little bit about why you do what you do today, responsible for the high-tech and M&A sector within Lipa Meir Co. Law firm. Previously, though, you've also worked in the public sector with Tel Aviv University, Yale, Israeli Supreme Court, amongst a few other incredible areas with the Attorney General as well. So, Amir, walk me through a little bit, your sort of legal career. What has been sort of your trajectory that you've chosen, and how did you end up working in the tech sector?
Okay. The short answer is by chance. Nothing really happened which was really planned, but it's ended up for good. I'll start with my military service. I served in the Unit Ep881, and then I got some exposure to all kinds of, let's call it high-tech or early stage high-tech of all sorts. And other than that, in Ep881, they give you the opportunity to do anything, and they give you the feeling that you can do anything, you can reach anything, which is a great thing when you're young and having not too much experience. Once I finished my military service, I started to learn legal law at Tel Aviv University. I graduated from Tel Aviv University. I was a clerk at the Israeli Supreme Court and also at a private law firm. And then I went to Yale to have my LLM degree. And during my studies at Yale, during my study at Yale, I was amazed to see that there were so many people who were hopping between the private sector and the public sector, between being professors and working in the government, because till then I had a very structured vision of being a lawyer. You go to law school, then you become a private lawyer, then you retire after 40 years, and that's about it. Nothing really interesting, nothing really dynamic. And I started asking myself, why get stuck in a private law firm acting only for private clients? And eventually, after I came back to Israel, after 1 year, I had the chance to join the Attorney General's office, which was during the early 90s, and it was a very, let's call it a hectic period in Israel, with the Rabin administration, with the peace process, a lot of protests, and obviously eventually the murder of Yitzhak Rabin. After the murder, I was appointed as an investigator at the governmental investigation committee for the murder of Rabin, the Shamgar committee, which was a very unique, once-in-a-lifetime experience, and it had nothing to do with law, more than it was more about fact-finding, about interviewing witnesses, people of the GSS, and so on and so forth. It was really amazing.
Incredible.
In a good
Now,
and bad way.
what did you learn from that experience? What was that like? Being in trying to figure out what happened in one of the most monumental events of our country's history.
Okay, it's quite complicated. I'd say that first of all, the members of the committee were impressive persons. First and foremost, President Shamgar was a man of, a hero of his era. He's done so many things. He was so sharp, so bright, and so devoted to the task. And also the two other members were great persons. As for the investigation by itself, first of all, we interviewed all parties involved, beginning with Yigal Amir himself. We went to the jail, and me and another investigator talked with him about 2.5 hours or so about the murder, what moved him. By the way, you can find the transcript of such investigation. And actually, it was later on, there's a film about the murder, a feature film about the murder, and they basically took the investigation word by word, and you can see the investigation verbatim. It was a very moving experience. And it was a very heartbreaking experience to see both the Shabak, the GSS persons, and the police trying to struggle with the fact that, in a way, they too were responsible for such murder. They could have prevented it rather easily, and they failed to do so. The GSS people had only one job, and they failed. And it was very, very sad to see these people so disappointed of themselves, and then having to encounter all kinds of legal proceedings, court-like proceedings. So, this is something
unbelievable.
Take over. This is really something that I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. After that, I moved to the Supreme Court. I worked with President Barak, the president of the Supreme Court, for about 4 years. It was also amazing. Super, super bright person. All the most sensitive, most complicated issues were on the table. And then I started asking myself, okay, what's next? I reached such heights, such peaks of interest, of importance. I didn't feel at that time that there was something comparable to that in the public sector. And I didn't want to just stand in line to be a judge within 5-10 years and so on. And I really liked the short period where I served as a lawyer at the private sector. So after quite a lengthy shopping, I opened with another partner a boutique law firm. And for some reason, we focused on high-tech. It wasn't my choice. It was my partner's previous career, and he was more into it. And I decided to join him. And we've been having a boutique law firm about 20 years, dealing mostly with high-tech, corporate law, and so on, all centered around technology of all sorts. And then we joined Lipa Meir 3 years ago or so. And I keep doing the same, but under a greater umbrella with amazing partners of all sorts. And now I have much broader shoulders to rely upon.
Incredible.
That's basically my life story.
Well, I think that we could talk for hours about your life story. Each of those, each of these pieces that you touched on, I think, can be expanded so much. If you're looking at this transition from the public to the private sector, going from working with the Supreme Court and the Attorney General and working on such a sensitive but critical matters to society, transitioning to working in the tech sector, what is that like? What is that transition like for a person?
Okay, first of all, there was a lot of stress in the public sector because almost everything was crucial and had so much importance, especially during my tenure at the Attorney General's office. Most of it was rather depressing because things were very challenging and was really bothered by everything that happened. Once you move to the private sector, it's not life and death. It's important, it's crucial, it's probably crucial for the entrepreneurs, it's crucial for the companies who are undergoing IPOs or M&As, but it's not the same magnitude. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, I felt that I'm doing many positive things. I'm not against anybody. I'm not suing anybody. I'm not indicting anybody. I'm not acting in court against all kinds of petitions. I'm trying to help build things. You take entrepreneur hand in hand from day one. You go with him to all rounds of investments, to his or her first commercial transactions, and then you get to the next round, then you get to the M&A, and you are not the investor, you are not the entrepreneur, but still you help them. And you stand by them or with them at all stages of development of such issues. And in many cases, you feel fulfilled. Again, it's not life or death, it's not national, but still, you meet a lot of good people, you try to help them, and if you succeed, then it's great. So I don't miss it. I'm very glad I did it. I'm very glad I spent such time at the public service, but I don't think that I would have survived till then, or I wouldn't like to spend all my career in the public sector. Also in the public sector, you meet a lot of people who are experts in their field. It may be constitutional law, it may be penal law, but they don't really know the real world because they never conducted any transaction. They never went to court, not representing the state, but the little person. And their perception is somewhat, I would say, lacking. And this is why one of the reasons why I decided I did not want to become a judge from that position. I'd say I need to know the world. I need to speak with real people and not just be on the public service thing that I'm always right and I always do the right thing. Sometimes I do the right thing, sometimes not. And I rather be with my two legs on the ground and not just sitting in some isolated office.
Interesting. What is your work like with entrepreneurs? If you're looking at the way that, you're joining companies early on and then you're sort of guiding them throughout the way, what is your engagement like and how involved are you with their business, their idea, their technology, whatever they're doing? What is that relationship like?
Okay, let's start with technology. I think that one of the most fascinating facets of my work is to meet with a new investor, a new entrepreneur, and hear about the new technology, the new ideas, the new business trend. It's always amazing because people come up with such great ideas. I'm not an engineer. I did not write any one line of software, but still I understand the ideas and I got some experience through the years. My work, I believe, as the work of many other high-tech lawyers, is very, very close to entrepreneur. It's not as if you see them for one time and that's about it. You go with them for years, and throughout all the crises, the ups and downs and so on. So it's very important, at least for me, to have a close relationship with entrepreneurs. Let them be very transparent to me. I'd be very frank with them, mostly with regard to legal issues, but also with regard to semi-commercial issues. I don't decide about valuation. I don't decide about who's the right partner, but I can share my experience and say, don't aim too high because later on you'll suffer because you overshoot in this regard. Be kind to your investors. Keep them abreast all times because you'll need them shortly, and so on and so forth. And as the years pass and as my hair becomes whiter and whiter, I have more experience to share with entrepreneurs. And I really enjoy the journey. It's not one time. Of course, we do also M&As, which takes place, 2 or 3 or 4 months, and that's about it. But the more exciting is seeing it's not mine, but still a startup grow up from a toddler to a full-grown startup with tens or more than 100 employees, and then international presence and so on and so forth.
So is it more the legal side of your work, or the sort of the startup, exciting, innovative side that sort of guides you today as you work, as you partner? Because you talk a lot about the partnership. You talk a lot about being a part of the journey, a part of the adventure. And you're not talking as much about the legal work, which is obviously there, But what really excites you today?
First of all, there are changes all the time. This whole area develops, and you see all kinds of new agreements. Safes are rather new things. CLAs will become much more prominent since the beginning of COVID. You see new types of transactions. And in many cases, some cases, you just have the template and say, okay, that's a standard transaction. I'll just fill in the names and some details, and that's about it. That's not really thrilling. But in many cases, I find myself word crafting. You need to address a very complicated situation and to cover all scenarios, and you have to put it in writing. And sometimes it's not just writing, it's like a formula about anti-dilution or down rounds and so on. And I really find myself writing something and saying, hey, that's amazing. I never wrote this before. So it's both. It's both. In many cases, the legal work is second to the thrill of a startup. But in some cases, you say, okay, I'm learning a new subject for the first time, a new legal subject for the first time. I'm working in a new jurisdiction for the first time. And it's still amazing after all these years.
I love it. And if you're looking at the way that entrepreneurs today are dealing with, the legal areas or in general, some entrepreneurial behavior, you're seeing them grow from, sort of 0 to 1 and then 1 to 100. Are there some things that, you're particularly inspired by? And the second piece to that is, if there are things that you observe that, new entrepreneurs can look out for or can think for themselves, okay, this is something that I can improve on when I'll be an entrepreneur.
Okay. First of all, when you first meet with a team of 2 or 3 entrepreneurs, you look at them and say, okay, who'll be here in 1 year or so? Because it's so tasking, it's so difficult to be an entrepreneur in a young startup, and you really don't know who'll get to the finish line and who'll just get exhausted before that and leave. And you think about potential, let's call it disagreements between entrepreneurs. And I can see, I really admire people who get up every day more optimistic than the other day. And go through so many challenges. It may be geopolitical, it may be local, it may be a key employee who just decided to leave because somebody offered him more. And still they insist, they go to work every day, they're so optimistic and so sure of themselves. And of course, on my side, I'm not pessimistic, but I'm realistic. And you cannot be realistic when you're an entrepreneur, when you are running a startup. You don't know where your money will come from, when the next round will take place, but still you go on with full force. You don't have a product yet, but still you are trying to sell it and explain it and make other people as enthusiastic as you are. And these are really virtues that I admire with entrepreneurs. Having said all that, I think that the entrepreneurs should be optimistic, maybe overly optimistic, but should bear in mind all the downside as well. And I try to help them manage the risk and behave in a manner which will keep them alive and keep them credible to their investor, to their employees, and to the whole surrounding environment in order to keep on and raise another round of money, raise more employees, retain employees, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Is there something about the mentality that you think that you are particularly maybe helpful in guiding them towards thinking differently about a process or changing some mentality so that they have a better grasp on the way that they run their startups or the way that they deal with their legal matters, perhaps? In other words, from your legal experience and your own angle of things, what do you observe that entrepreneurs pretty, across the board can benefit from sort of your background and the way that you see the world?
I think that I can try and help them with regard to priorities and risk-taking and risk management. If you're, a startup which deals with personal data, and you need to comply with so many legal requirements all over the globe, you don't have the resources, you don't have the people, you don't have the funds, but you should at least start to be aware of it, start to plan when you'll do that and when you'll do that. You need to know how to spend your money at phase 1, then at phase 2, and then at phase 3. So I'm trying to tell them what's important and what's not, and what's important as of when. Sometimes I tell them, okay, you probably should have done this, but nobody can really expect you to do this at this stage. But once you get the first massive investment, you must do this and this, because otherwise nobody will talk to you at the big boys arena. And trying to make some order, because many entrepreneurs are very product-oriented, development-oriented, which is fine, but is not enough. So I'm trying to help them get to know other aspects as well.
I love it. And Amir, I really appreciate your time, not just your insights and the way that you are. It's very clear and evident that your passion lies in working with the entrepreneurs today and guiding them through that 0 to 1 and then 1 to 100 phase. You're not just taking the legal work. You're part of the journey, and you get personally inspired and excited by the resilience and optimism, and that clearly comes across. But even more inspiring than that is your background with the Supreme Court and the Attorney General, and dealing with some of the most fascinating, tragic, and crazy things that have happened in this country, and even before that with Yale and TAU. So again, thank you very much for being here and sharing these 20 minutes with me. And not nearly enough to encompass your journey, but I loved it. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.